Hi, it's Sandy Wyllie. Welcome to my mental health channel. You got this, where I wipe away the stigma of mental illness by talking about my own personal struggles as a former patient of almost 20 years having borderline personality disorder. I talk about narcissism. I talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, schizophrenia, and a plethora of other mental health topics. But I only come on as a former patient. I am not a licensed therapist. I do not hold a degree in psychology. So I cannot give you a professional opinion or diagnose you. And all I ask in return of you is your kindness in the comments. Please be kind to me. Please be kind to other people who comment, and be kind to yourself. Let's just show respect and kindness. We don't have to agree. That's what makes the world go around, people having different, opinions. But we do need to agree on one thing, and that is kindness and respect. So if you're new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you like what you see, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free. Now, today's videos focuses on something I have never talked about before. Who is my real father? I'm going to let you in on that. I wrote a book, Life with My Schizophrenic Father. My father is a paranoid schizophrenic. He was diagnosed as that. I did not, make that up or anything. He was professionally diagnosed in McLean's Hospital in Belmont by Dr. Robert Torchin, his psychiatrist. He was in and out of mental hospitals. He has delusions. He hears voices. My mother was a very abusive, narcissistic, who used to beat me up and belittle me. And I've talked about this in a lot of other videos. So, my diagnosis by two psychologists, one from Harvard, one from Yale, is borderline personality disorder. I also have post-traumatic stress disorder. I also have anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder. I have a lot of things on my plate, and I have a severely traumatic brain injured son who's an invalid and in a special institute. So that's to catch up on for those of you who are new, but you can go catch up on my other videos. Now, growing up, my father left home for several years when I was a little girl. He accused my mother of having an adulterous affair with my cousin. So, my father's half-sister, Helen, had a son named Johnny. And he accused my mother of sleeping with Johnny, which is my cousin. So he always denounced me as his daughter. I never talked about this before, but sometimes I question, was I really his biological daughter? Now, my parents are both long, long dead. They died when I was 38 years old, within 3 months of each other. I'm an only child. We never got tested out, so we never know for 100% sure if my cousin Johnny is my father or if my father, Anthony Palladino, is my father. Now, since my father was a paranoid schizophrenic, no one took what he said seriously. So they just thought he was delusional and, made this all up or like paranoid, thought things that weren't really true. Did my mother have an affair with my cousin Johnny? How am I supposed to know? My father left me when I was only like 2 years old. And, my parents, there was a 2-family house. Now, my parents and me lived downstairs. My uncle Philly, my father's half-brother, lived upstairs with his second wife and my cousin Stephen, that you hear me talk about, where he was in the TV series American's Greed, The Neighbor Next Door. I put the link in. There's a whole video I did all about my cousin Stephen, who went to jail for a Ponzi scam. Now, through the grapevine, I heard that my cousin Johnny would visit all the time and my mother would have sex with him, and that's how I was conceived. But, you know, I'm not 100% sure about this story too, because my father also admitted to having a sex life with my mother, and they were having sex around the time I was conceived. So it's like a soap opera. I really don't know. But imagine the impact that this had on a young child, you know, growing up. Just picture for a moment. You tell a young child that I'm not your father. Your mother slept with my nephew. It would have been my father's, right. My father's sister's son would have been his nephew. So he's telling me that my mother slept with his nephew and conceived me. So I'm growing up believing that, you know, he isn't my real dad, that my cousin, who I think is, the man Johnny, who I think is my cousin, is my real dad. And here's the ironic thing, too, about it. My cousin Johnny had schizophrenia, too. My cousin Johnny almost killed my Uncle Charlie. Okay, so he almost killed him. He got into a rage one time and he took a big cement tabletop. It was outdoor patio furniture, and their patios were made like with the cement tabletops. It was big and round, and he was throwing it at him. Yep. So, and here I am calling my cousin Johnny. I called him Uncle Johnny. Now, why did I call my cousin Uncle Johnny? Granted, he was older than me, but if he was my cousin, why did they force me to call him Uncle? You know, I didn't call him Daddy. But just imagine the confusion. This is why I turned into having borderline personality disorder. I truly believe it. Because I didn't even know my own identity growing up. Really, I questioned my own identity because my father insisted that my mother slept around with my cousin, who I called Uncle. This is crazy. This gets as crazy as my stories about my psychologist, really. It's that crazy. So it can leave a child very confused and like not knowing like who is who in the family. Is my cousin, who I call Uncle Johnny, my dad? And I also was confused because my mother was married before to another man, okay, named Tommy Guzzi. And I was confused about, well, am I not his daughter? Did my mother have me when she was married to Tommy Guzzi? There was too many different variables, and like the adults made it very confused. They weren't level-headed, rational adults in my family. They made it very, very confusing, you know. You should not ever say that to a child. If it's the truth, that'd be one thing, you know. If my if my cousin Johnny, who I called Uncle, I don't know why they made me call him Uncle. That's very confusing. Do you call even if he's older, he was older than me, but do you go around calling your cousins Uncle? And nobody got a paternity test, you know. We never got tested to find out if my father, who raised me, was my real biological father. And isn't it also ironic that my cousin Johnny also had paranoid schizophrenia and kill, oh, he didn't kill, but he was very close to killing my Uncle Charlie, which would have been, let's see, It gets confusing. You got to read my book, Life with My Schizophrenic Father. But this, I almost felt like someone who was adopted. When you're adopted and you don't know who your real parents are? Well, I didn't know what story to believe. I was very confused as a child, I've been told different stories, by different people, and it was totally confusing. I never had any consistency growing up. There was no consistency. There was no calm adult in my life. My mother was hysterical and beat me. My father was hysterical in psychotic rages and hallucinated, and he told me over and over again that I was not his daughter. So imagine your dad telling you, "You're not my daughter. You're a product of an affair, an adulterous affair that my wife had with your cousin," who I call Uncle. They made me call him Uncle Johnny, not Johnny. So this is how deranged, and get this, Johnny's mother, Helen, had mental shock treatments. Now, she had major depression, and back in those days, they did electrical shock treatments. Have any of you heard of that? I don't know everything that it entails, but they put, probes in your head and they give you shock or something. I don't know. But it left her into a vegetable state. So my Aunt Helen, Johnny's mother, who could be my father biologically, who knows? She was left in a vegetable state after she got electrical shock treatment for depression. She got it because she had major depression. I don't even know if they do electrical shock treatment today. I don't know if it's done. And if it is done, maybe it's done in a different way that's not as damaging to your brain. But it left her in in a vegetable state. So she was very much a simple. She still could function, unlike my son. She had an apartment, and she used to wash toilets, people's toilets. She was like a maid, so she still could, function on her own. My son can't function at all. He needs 24-hour supervision. He can't live on his own. He can't go to the bathroom. He can't shower. He can't do anything on his own. But she still was like in a vegetable state, very, very limited cognitive functioning. So that's, how it rolls. Some things you just die with. I'll never know the whole story about the sordid, truth or lies, or I don't know. But I wanted to come on and share that with you because I think it's very important to talk about these things and make people aware of these things. And what people go through, not really being sure of a little girl growing up, not really even being sure of her own identity. I mean, that's, if you don't know your own identity, you don't, and people are giving you conflicting stories. That's tough.